Okay, Mr. Chairman, the waiting room is empty. Meeting is being recorded. You're clear to proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 5th, 2022 Board of Selectmen's meeting. I'm going to call it to order at 6:04. And before we start public comment, I just want to let everyone know that there is no discussion tonight about the headlands. I know there's been a lot online and we've received your emails, we've read them, but there's no discussion tonight. Please keep your eyes out on the commissioners meeting, the DPW commissioners, for when it gets added to that meeting, when they're going to review it. As of now, the selectmen will ensure that the public do get input at some point when it's on our agenda and it gets to us, and I'll be sure to post that online for everyone to see. So with that, we'll open up to public comment.
Okay, if anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. Okay, I see Heidi Caswell-Zander. Okay, you are unmuted.
Wondering why the headlands has been put off.
Name and address for the record, please.
Heidi Caswell-Zander, 8 Wharf Road.
Sure, and just to answer that question, it was never on the agenda. There was very incorrect information floating. It was not ever on the Board of Selectmen's agenda for this evening. That was an incorrect batch of information that was shared with folks.
Just to add to that, the PowerPoint that's been going around isn't an official PowerPoint. It's from a resident in town. So I don't, I'm not even sure of the information that's on that PowerPoint. You can go to Toby.
Okay, Toby, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. The DPW commissioners have posted a public hearing to set the water and sewer rates next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, on the 13th of July at 11 a.m. And I've not spoken to them. Certainly I will, but you should speak to them as well, since you appoint them. Not everyone in this town is retired, although we have more retired people than most communities, and those who work 9 to 5, which are typical working hours, can't attend meetings at 11 in the morning. So if the purpose of a public hearing is to have the public be informed and weigh in, that goes nowhere. And I would ask you to say something to them. I will as well. Also, there is what is called an informational hearing on Tuesday, July 19, 2022, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And the same objections apply. This is for the Community Preservation Committee, Notice of Annual Public Informational Hearing. And I have additional sour remarks about that. This year, as opposed to last year, they're going to at least partially honor the bylaws by holding such a hearing. Not at the time that the bylaws call for. That's supposed to be part of drumming up projects with town departments. Obviously, that's where they're long past that. At their last meeting, in fact, they voted to approve the funding for the various projects. So a public hearing at this point is only window dressing and a pretense, and a pretty feeble one at that. I spoke with Laurie Kaiser, who told me that the section of the bylaw that I had hoped to see amended comes out of state law and can't be amended for that reason. But it might be possible, with goodwill on all sides, your board leading the way, to have a hearing at a time when it would be useful, as opposed to one at a time when it would be altogether futile. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby.
Okay.
All right, I want to concur with Toby on that. I think the public hearings and things of that nature need to be when people can attend it, if at all possible.
Okay, Nathaniel Mulcahy, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record. After Nathaniel will be Jenny Amory, Bill Tobin, Jessica Mulcahy, Sherry Casey.
Thank you, Mitch. My name is Nathaniel Mulcahy. I live at 7 Dean Road in Rockport, Massachusetts. For some reason, I can't quite see the screen, but I will. There we go. So 2 things for the record. One, I just want to, on the record, put that I am still very interested in being a volunteer for the Conservation Commission. I've put that in writing multiple times. I've attended the required meetings. Just want to make sure everybody knows I am still interested in moving forward with that process. Looking forward to having a conservation commission for our town again. Briefly for the record, and touching lightly on the headlands issue, I think it is imperative that public meetings be held. I'm glad to hear that there will be one dealing with the headlands issues. These spaces are public and should have public input. I put a public records request in to get the information about Harvey Park when people were very concerned about how things were happening there. And it turns out that the plans that were given to me were made after the work had been done. So we as a town can work together so that when things are done and changes are made, I believe it's to everybody's benefit that the public input is done and the plans are drawn up before the work begins and not after. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, Nathaniel, that you did receive the email that we responded back to you, so you know the reasons why the Conservation Commission hasn't been going yet. So, thank you.
Okay, Jenny Amory, name and address for the record, please.
Sure. I'm Jenny Amory. I live at 8 Andrews Hollow in Rockport. And I want to thank the Select Board for this public comment period. I actually attended the last Select Board meeting where Tom Mikas presented his rationale for why he would like to be exempt from the 3-committee policy that the Select Board adopted. And I think is effective July 1. Thank you, Mitch, for sending the particular policy. And I just wanted to share that at the last Green Community Task Force meeting, the members that were present and an advisor to the Green Community Task Force all voted to request to both Mitch and the Select Board that you pass this exemption for Tom, who is a consistent and long-term chair of the Green Community Task Force. I think I won't go at length about the complexity of the work, but it is complex and multiple projects. And we think, speaking on behalf of the Green Community Task Force, Tom was actually not present, did not vote. Someone else chaired the meeting when we had this discussion about asking the Select Board to vote for the exemption. So I urge you, in this time where we need the chair of the Green Community Task Force to remain. And thank you very much for hearing my comments.
Thank you.
Okay, Bill Tobin, name and address for the record, please. You're unmuted.
Yes, Bill Tobin, 24 Beach Street in Rockport. Okay, I also agree with Jenny, and I've been with Tom many a year now at this endeavor to bring money into the town to reduce use of fossil fuels. And it turns out we're right on the beam. We're doing very well. And to bring another person in and bring them up to the quality that Tom Mikas brings with his phenomenal background and engineering background and ability to truly understand how to organize people would be a very difficult road to climb out of. You know, we've got three major projects going. You know, we've got a big report coming from for the solar thing at the transfer station. We have the ongoing situation with the LED lights in town. We know we can save quite a bit of money for the town, and it would be an excellent idea of bringing more night sky compliancy to Rockport, another whole venue for the possibility of tourists to come here for our night sky compliancy. It's happening around the country. It'd be a very good thing. We've already brought the EV stations in, and we're still working on one on the Highlands, and it has nothing to do with the situation with Mr. Hess. So we also will want to do consolidation program for the entire town to earn less money, to pay less money for the fuel portion of their electric bills from National Grid. And as you all know, that's on the way up big time. So it's a vital, vital interest for the town to retain Tom Meekus as chair of the Green Community Task Force. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Jessica Mulcahy, you're next. You're unmuted. After Jessica will be Sherry Casey, Diane Finch, Christine Downing. Jessica, name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Thank you so much. I'm Jessica Mulcahy at 7 Dean Road, and thank you for providing an opportunity to comment. This is very light. I know it's not in the agenda today. One of the things as a resident of Rockport that's wonderful about living in a small town is how accessible and how involved the public can be. I think the Old Garden Beach, the Headlands piece is part of, it's been a little frustrating to figure out what's going on and where the information is. Watching the recording of the DPW meeting, Mr. Hess did present a PowerPoint, but it sounds like Selectman Brackett, that's not the PowerPoint that's currently in motion. So just some clarity on the process. It's great to hear that's going to be addressed, but just some clarity on where we can find the information and when you think that might be available, the official information, that would be so helpful. Thank you so much.
I can address that for one moment. As I said, keep your eyes on the DPW Commissioner's agenda as they're going to be reviewing the plans as they're still being created in a way. There's no official plans. This is just, it's still in the works. Like I initially said, I think it was 2020 when we first had our first presentation, which was for the improvements of the access points, which has been done. And to my knowledge, I haven't seen anything other than that from any official source yet. So, and we are working with that diligently, and I'll be sure to post the DPW Commissioners meeting as well as the Selectmen's meeting when they're on there to the Facebook and stuff like that for everyone to know.
Okay, Sherry Casey, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record, please.
Sherry Casey, 10 Dean Road. And I'm also asking this question tonight on behalf of the Rockport Garden Club. We have been trying to get an answer as to when the community house will be open to us again. We've been having our meetings there since 1928, and we would like to continue to be there. As of now, we've been requesting through Mitch Vieira's office to find out when we can do this. And we've not been given an answer of any kind so that we can make plans. If we can't have our meetings there, then we need to make other plans, and would like to know what the plan is for the community house, and will we be allowed back in?
Thank you, Sherry. Oh,
Okay.
she's still on.
Sure. So, Mr. Chair, sure, just to address that, as we've said to the Garden Club previously, and I believe Selectman Wilkinson has also engaged in this topic as well. We're still in the process, as we are with many open positions, attempting to find a community house facility manager. That's the crux of things for utilizing that building. And that is really the important part of all of this, having a facility manager to guide it. Certainly evenings and off-hour usage, once we have that in place, we'll look to get back to normal. The intention, though, is during the day, that facility is the Council on Aging. And I'm not anticipating making that, allowing general usage during the Council on Aging business hours. The opportunity is for them to use that space during that time, as I have previously indicated. So that is the intention right now. Once we get the facility manager in, we're happy to start looking at reservation requests again. And then, certainly anything that does not subsume time that is there for the Council on Aging, we'll certainly look at for reservation use. In the meantime, the Garden Club has been allocated time as they've asked at the police station. So I think we're clear on that one. Okay, Diane Finch, name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm sorry, in between locations. I'm Diane Finch, 215 Granite Street. I would like to reiterate or just support what Jen Armory and Bill Tobin have already said. I just want to say one thing. Tom Mikas, I think, is an exemplary public servant. And in a time where we have not enough volunteers to do this good work, which is very good work with a strong history of bringing in money and getting projects actually done. I really think it would be a bad time for him to have to step down from any committee. Maybe if the committee is all filled up well, then we could start looking at a 3-committee maximum, but I just think it would be a mistake for the town and the residents. That's all. He's a great leader. Thanks.
Thank you, Diane.
Okay, next is Christine Downing.
Hi, my name is Christine Downing. I'm at 19 Parker Street. I have 4 points. One is that a few years ago, I heard in a Board of Selectmen's meeting that people were noting that the absences of some committee members who were on several committees. So they were on several committees, but they weren't showing up. And so my general topic here has to do with the position adjustments. But so if people don't show up, I think that's a reason to limit how many committees they can be on. Certainly would take them off the ones where they don't show up. It's not the case with either Monica Lawton or Tom Mikas. Another thing I've heard in a number of meetings is a problem with siloed information. The things get done in individual committees, but there's not enough connection. And one of the ways to address that is to have, when people are able to take on more work, and retirees certainly are able, some, is that they can participate in a number of committees and then integrate that information. So that's an advantage to the town. If people aren't attending meetings, I think that's where the rationale is. However, if they do the work, then I think that you should consider letting people take on as much as they wish, as long as they're able to do it. So I think that's the end of my list. I think in both cases, we have extraordinary skills in these two people that are being considered, and that it's a loss to the town. I mean, we wouldn't be able to pay, it seems to me, for extensive consulting fees from these people, and we're getting this work for free. So thank you for having public comment.
Thank you.
Okay, Nathan Ives, and then Mary S., who I think might be Z. Nathan, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record.
Yes, Nathan Ives, 99 Norwood Avenue. Thank you, Mr. Chair, very much for this opportunity to speak. I wanted to talk about the headlands just because as much as you say that you may not have known too much about what was going on, had I not, and others, a few of us, attended the DPW commissioners meeting 1 or 2 meetings ago of theirs when this came up for topic, not knowing it was on an agenda, that might well have passed without any public comment. Phase 1 of that whole thing, which was significant. Phase 1 is not anything preliminary. It's quite a change up there from 3 or 4 citizens with private money that has reportedly been gifted to the town when in fact it's not in the hands of the town whatsoever. So I'm very deeply concerned. I just wanted you to know that, and I've told everyone I know to just let you know, because I know how important public comment ought to be to the Board of Selectmen, so that you all know what's going on and what the public is feeling about it.
Okay.
Thank you, Nathan.
And then Mary S., Z, is that you?
It is, Mitch.
Okay.
Z Seppo on 92 Granite Street. I was a little bit concerned when you spoke about the facilities manager at the community house. I wasn't aware that I know that it's been difficult with the COVID and everything to coordinate things, but has Kathy Hunt left? And if so, what is being done? I think, that was an expensive property that was rehabilitated for community meetings. And to not be able to use it on the basis of not having a facilities manager seems to me something that should be taken care of.
Sure.
Is
So
there,
the general use of the facility has been lately restricted to the COVID clinics. So that has occupied the space in addition to the Council on Aging for close to 2 years at this point. So now that that's ended, now we're looking at general use again for that property. So to be able to properly manage it and not have it fall into disrepair and disarray, having the facility manager there, somebody to handle the bookings, somebody to review the rules, somebody who will be there to unlock the facility, lock it up at the end, check it for any issues, follow up with issues. That was a pretty critical role. So, certainly Kathy had it previously, and then before Kathy, Bill Balzerini did it. It plays a pretty important role for us. We used to, probably 7 or 8 years ago, just give the key out. And the facility suffered because of that, unfortunately. It suffered pretty significantly because of that. So the intention is to not have it go backwards now that it's open for some usage, but it's been COVID clinics for nearly 2 years in that space.
is the fact that the facility manager isn't there a casualty of the COVID business, Mitch? In other words, was she just not interested in keeping the job if there was nothing to do?
So we've, we didn't renew the position during COVID because there was nothing for anybody to do.
All right.
So we, are certainly looking at, and we've got some additional expectations to go along with the position now relating to online scheduling and things like that. So it is a little bit different than when we last had the position in place
Okay.
for a person to hold.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. We're roughly 30 minutes in, so Sherry, I'm not going to take any repeat public comment. Selectwoman Wilkinson will be reaching out to you. We'll be having Monica and Arts for the last 2 public comments.
Okay, Monica, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record.
Thank you, Monica Lawton, 11 Story Street. I just wanted to put in a word on behalf of the Garden Club. I happen to be a member of the Garden Club, but not a very active member. So I did not know Sherry was going to speak, asking for information. I recently learned the Garden Club has been engaged in a project to go back and research the history of the Garden Club. And I was quite fascinated to learn that the town of Rockport now has the community house because of the very early work of the Garden Club to save it as a building some 80 years ago. I do not remember the particulars, but without their efforts in advocacy to save that building and give it to the town, there would be no community house. I don't know if any of the selectmen or even you, Mitch, are aware of that history. And if you're not, I would encourage you to talk to the Garden Club and get the particulars, because I think it may warrant a special dispensation in their case. Thank you.
Arts, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Peggy Cahill, 15 Dean Road, Rockport. I was disconcerted to learn there were plans in the works possibly about the headlands being changed. And I wondered, and I wrote an email, is there in fact a headlands improvement project, a draft of something? That's the question I have.
As far as I know, it's created by some residents, which means you could make your own plans up and then present it. So, I'm not sure exactly what type of answer you're looking for. I mean, there is a PowerPoint that, again, as I said, will be presented to the DPW commissioners at some point. So just keep an eye on the agenda. And again, I'll be posting the agenda when it does arrive. But, it's not, as far as I know, there's no set DPW PowerPoint presentation on what they're doing. So it's just a resident's PowerPoint.
So it's a PowerPoint, but it's not a public document at this point.
I've seen it all around the public, so I don't know who's been sharing it. So that's
okay.
The PowerPoint is available in the June 8th DPW commissioners meetings, and those Zoom meetings are recorded and are available online on the town website. So you could see the PowerPoint there. It was presented by a private individual, not somebody who holds a position with the town.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say that I really think it's essential to ensure community participation when it comes to a public space, a town-owned space that so many of us have loved and enjoyed for so long due to its pristine and sort of wildness. So I was just really wanting to comment that I think it's essential that there is a public forum to have a discussion before any plans are made. Thank you.
That's going to be the end of the public comment. We do have a public comment at the end of the meeting. If anyone else would like to have a comment again, then thank you. So with that said, we'll be moving on to the board, commission, and committee updates. And we have, I think we have Jason Shaw here.
You do, Mr. Chair. Yep.
How are we doing, Jason?
Hi, am I unmuted?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening, board members and members of the public. As you know, I'm the chairman of the planning board in Rockport, and I'm here tonight to discuss the possibility of a special public meeting, special town meeting this fall to circle back and represent the what was Article B at the spring town meeting, which although it did get a majority of votes, it did not reach the required 2/3, therefore it did not pass. Article B, if anybody who was following this, was of the, we had B, C, D, and E. I think Article B was the least controversial changes to the zoning bylaw. Most of it was simply updating things, eliminating inconsistencies, giving the building inspector the authority that he needed to enforce the zoning bylaw. And these should have been, these were non-controversial. They should have passed by more than 2/3. However, the meeting got very muddled, and I think people were confused and ended up thinking about Article B in connection with the accessory dwelling unit provision, which was a new article, which did pass at the meeting. So what we want to do is come back to the people in the town. We're going to take Article B, divide it up into smaller pieces to make it easier to digest and go forward, and hopefully this time, without the other articles being on the agenda, that this will pass. And because it's important that we clean up the zoning bylaw, and that's really what all this was about. We were at I was talking to Mitch about, a special in the fall. I am going to be out of the country from the 10th of October to the 25th of October. But other than that, I'm available, and I know the other planning board members are available also. So we want to just take the temperature on this. It's important that we do this as soon as possible, just to finish our business. So that's pretty much what I'm here for, is to get some feedback on that. I know Denise Donnelly, who's now on your board, was on our board, and she's very familiar with what was in Article B and what happened at the meeting. So
thank you, Jason. So I just have one question. Is it like how crucial is the cleaning up of that? Like how much does it affect the ones that passed?
Well, Mr. Chair, it doesn't.
Jason, you think I could speak to that?
Yeah, sure. You were on the board. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think, Ross, it's really critical that we get this done. There are some provisions in there that are gonna that are going to make it possible, for example, for Paul Orlando to actually have some power in his position in terms of enforcing zoning bylaws. I mean, in addition to all the cleanup that Jason is talking about and making sure that things are internally consistent, there were a few things that were really kind of important, such as that one. So I think it's really critical that we move forward with this as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I support the idea, Jason. I'll see if any other board members have any questions or if they want to put their input. Selectman Murphy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Jason, for coming to speak to us. And you can't have Denise Donnelly back. We like her on the board. So
I'm trying.
Okay, yeah, I thought there was something going on. Anyway, my question is it at all possible to put this, if everyone is in agreement, to put this on the fall town meeting? So, or does it need to be, I suspect it needs to be a standalone.
I don't think it has to be a standalone, but in all honesty, I think the bylaw meeting is gonna either be lengthy or also be confusing points at the same.
Okay,
We've got close to 10 CPC projects, if not 10 CPC projects, and we've got a number of, it could be anywhere from 6 to 10 code of bylaw chapters.
I suspect that was I just wanted to ask the question, but I suspected that was the case. Thank you.
Yeah, so it, if I had my druthers, I mean, obviously I'm getting back, I'm going to be overseas. I'm getting back on the 25th. I don't know whether I'd be up for this, 3 days later or something, but certainly early November, or, I leave,
So ideally, logistically, it would be early October. If we're looking for maximum impact, so it'd be before you go, I think Jason would be ideal impact.
Well, okay, so just talking about specific dates first, a second. Let me just get my calendar out because I don't want to give anybody any. Okay, I am leaving on the 10th of October. So that means that's a Monday. And if we're talking about October, that would be there's an entire week before that, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th. So that would be, and we have a regular planning board meeting on the 6th, but we could, this is too important. We could just cancel that meeting if we had to take care of this, if that was required. So basically that whole week is open.
All right. Selectman Lay, do you have any input or questions? Are you on board with a special town meeting?
I'm not sure, Jason, you proved your point with regard to the absolute need of having it now versus later. I guess that's my only question. I understand that there are some issues that Paul might better be able to handle if in fact we did it now, but
can I say one thing?
I'm just not sure that there's a driving force there, but
well, just think ahead as when we have the next town meeting in the spring for that, we don't know what's going to be on that yet, so we don't want these items to muddle up that meeting. So I think it'd be best if we just got them out of the way and
Yeah, we weren't at this spring town meeting because the docket was so crowded. There's so many articles, and I'm assuming that's where all the financial stuff is voted on. I'm assuming that's going to happen again at the next spring town meeting in 2023. I think it would be not ill-advised to wait till next spring to do this stuff. It's more than just, Paul was actually quite disappointed that the provision that he would give him more enforcement authority did not get adopted. And also there's so many inconsistencies and archaic and inappropriate language in the current bylaw that we hope would have been straightened out easily. That's the whole point of this, is that this is non-controversial stuff. And there's just simply not going to be the kind of discussion, the heated discussion that there was at the last special town meeting involving the ADUs and the train station overlay zone, which took up a huge amount of time. That they're gone here. This should be really easy stuff to do.
So this presentation will be broken down so that it will be digestible.
Yeah, it's going to be broken down. We already have it broken up. We have what was Article B. We have it actually broken into 5 different separate articles for 2 reasons. One, to make it, digestible to the public. And the second one is if for some reason one of the articles doesn't, get the 2/3, the other 4 won't fall also, so that's another reason. We don't want to tie everything together. And we're trying to keep the most mundane ministerial provisions in one place, so there won't be any danger. And I think this is important for us to do. I echo what Denise said, is that this is something we need to do sooner than later, and this is the right time to do it.
All right, thank you, Jason. So how was the board feel? I think Mitch should look into it and see what dates we can get together and see if we can make it happen. I don't know if everyone's on board, but.
I agree, and I'd suggest that if at all possible, that we have it on a Monday evening, just to stay consistent with, because we usually do the fall and special town meetings are usually Monday evening. So if at all possible.
Sure. So if there's consensus this evening with the board, I'll start with the moderator and the clerk. And then we'll check availability of the school for that week and see what comes from that.
Perfect.
Mr. Chair, before we move off the planning board, I was just hoping Mitch could give a quick update on the housing production plan and using ARPA funds to hire a consultant to help us with that.
Yes, certainly. The ad the RFP is appearing in the Central Register on, let me just find my note.
Before you talk on that, Mitch, can I?
On July, I'm sorry.
I just want to get Selectman Layers before we change topic.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies.
Oh, sorry.
I just want to see where he stands. I don't know.
No, I'll certainly go along with it. Okay. I want it to be successful. I'm still not entirely convinced that it has to be this fall. It could be a special meeting in the spring. There is no driving force there, but if it can be held this fall, then go ahead and do it.
I think so. All right, back to you.
Okay, my apologies, Selectman Lilia. The RFP is slated to go into the Central Register on July 20th. So the RFP becomes available that day. And then it'll be open for 3 weeks, 2, 3. So it's closing sometime latter portion of that first week of August. And then hopefully we'll get some responses back on that.
Great. Thanks, Mitch.
Yep.
All right, if there's no more questions for Jason, I'll move on to the DPW Facility Building Committee with Bruce Reed.
All right, thank you, folks. Have a good.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Reed is here and Director LeBlanc is here.
All right.
Thanks to the committee for inviting me in. And I think what we should do is just kind of walk you through from the vote to give us the additional money to where we are today. So when the vote took place, we went back and the committee got together and we really spent some time in talking about the project, obviously, and what did we want to build. And it became clear that everyone was in agreement that we wanted to go back to the original design that we had. It's the one that gave us the right space. It gave us the room we needed. Not a lot of extra room. I don't want people to think that, oh boy, we're going back to the Taj Mahal, as I've heard it called, because it isn't. It's just barely adequate in size for what a town needs. So we then started doing the process that you need to do. So we worked with Weston and Sampson. We re-engaged with the town's property manager or project manager, City Point, and we've been progressing ever since then. there's been some changes along the way, and Gary and Aaron pointed out that our administration is a little bit different than it once was, and we now have a DPW business manager. And we really didn't have any space for her. So we re-engaged with Weston and Sampson to take the same space that we had already allocated and to redesign it so that she could have a private office space, which is, when you think about it, how do you have a business manager if you can't have what's in a business manager's office secure? So we took care of that. So the big thing we've been doing since then is Weston and Sampson has a group of people that basically they price out the project to determine whether we have enough money to build this building. And so they've been working on that, and they came back and said that although it's very tight, but we have the money to build the project. So then the next piece that comes into play is that we need to determine what would be the alternates in this project. So if something came in over budget, what could we live without to get us back within the budget? So we spent a lot of time working on that, and right down to the last meeting, in fact. And what we determined was that paving was one of the big things that we could deal with differently. We would still pave the project, but instead of using the general contractor as the company that would run the paving, the town would run the paving. And that would save us some money on the overhead that they charge. So we chose to do that. There were some mechanicals in the building that we chose not to do as well, or would not do at that point. If we come in and the project's going well and the money's there, then we will add these back in and have the general contractor take care of them. But we can get this building built and make it functional without these things. So we've spent really an inordinate amount of time on working on that. Another big discussion point was the salt shed. And, you know, I remember first looking at the salt shed way back, you know, it seems like forever ago now, but when this committee was formed, and looking at it saying, you know what, this is just outrageously priced. And we spent a lot of time kicking that around, and if anything, the price has gone up. So the salt shed now is if we have the general contractor do it within the base plans, we're well over $700,000, pretty close to $1 million for a salt shed.
Wow.
Seems like an awful lot of money. So we're looking at alternatives, and in fact, Gary is meeting, or maybe has already met with the company that furnishes, we'll call them, to keep it simple, a quonset hut approach to the design, and would be a lot less expensive, would then fit well within the budget. So to make a long story short is we think we've got the money to build this. We have it now on paper that we can build this building. And we are, I think it hits a central register this week. And, you know, it's out there and it's going to be on the street for this project to be bid. We also revisited with all the contractors that had bid on this project before when we pulled it back. All of them said that they were interested in rebidding. So we know we'll have pretty good participation in this process. So it's out there, it's on the street this week, and we'll just keep working it to make sure that we can make it fit within the budget we have.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Do you want to let the public know when your next meeting will be so they can attend? If we don't, it's all right, we'll get it.
You know what, I think, actually, I don't have it directly in front of me, but I think it's closer to the end of the month because we really didn't have much to do until we started getting some of these bids back. So I think it's around the 18th, but we'll make it public so people can get involved with it.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Yes.
Selectman Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Bruce, for that well thought out and presentation. When this might be an unfair question, but when do you anticipate, or can you anticipate a shovel in the ground?
The plan is next spring.
Okay.
There is anywhere from an 8 to 10 week lead time on a steel building, a month lead time on building. So we're trying to have it all set so that we break earth next spring.
Terrific.
And get the project rolling. So
that'll
people
be-
will start seeing some things happening up there.
Yeah. And you know what, and in terms of the town and the history of the town, the schools were done in the late 80s when they put the complex up there on Jordan's Lane. The library was done in the early 90s, the police station. So this is the last large facility that needed to be addressed. So it's exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. And thank you and to the committee for all the hard work you've done.
Well, I think the committee has worked really hard on this. Like, I got to say that I really appreciate the community as well. I mean, it wasn't easy to come up with another $5 million for a project like this, and they stepped up, and it is without question the right thing to do. So
right, and that was I thought it was going to be a lot closer, the vote, but I was surprised happily surprised how the majority went.
I agree.
All right, Selectman Leah, did you have a question?
Just a minor one. Thank you, Bruce, for your overview. But I was just wondering if you would remind me once again the date by which these bids have to be back to you.
I would if I knew them, if I could give them to you, but I think it's the end of the month. I don't know if Gary's still on here, if Gary has the dates.
He's going through some papers right now. We'll find out in a second.
Okay. So it's towards the end of the month, Herm. So we should be fine by knowing where we are 1st of August.
Okay, thank you.
Selectwoman Donnelly?
Yeah, so while Gary's looking for that date, Bruce, so work starting in the spring, how long of a process will this be, and when do you expect to see a finished facility?
We're working on those dates now. They seem to be shifting a bit. And as you can well imagine, so less than 2 years for sure. It's it really will depend on how much we get done through the good building months next year. And then if we can have that done, and then the inside can continue to move forward. So a lot of it's got to do with just timing when things can get done.
Sure.
Because there's still an awful lot of site work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And that's got to be done in the good months.
Yep, understood. And assuming the supply chain will straighten itself out in the meantime, right?
And that's huge. Yes. And, and the prices don't go crazy again.
Yeah.
All right. Gary, did you happen to find that date?
I don't. Aaron has left for the day. We were going back and forth today with the consultant, and I don't want to give the wrong date. I apologize.
I
didn't give any date.
No worries. I know Selectman Leah can find some avenues he can get to you. So.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Thank you, Bruce. Any other questions before I let Bruce go?
No, great job. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bruce.
Appreciate all the help you folks have given us. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be moving on to the consent agenda, which tonight will be approval of minutes, if any, seasonal position appointments, position adjustments, and roadway paving phase 1 contract award to Nocella Paving. And if we have any discussion on that or not, I'll take a motion.
Okay, before I read the motion, I was wondering whether or not, for the sake of the town and for myself also, whether there was any indication as to when the paving phase would begin, and if there was any indication as to where it would take place in town, and that would be interesting also.
All right.
Yes.
For you, Gary's still unmuted.
I could speak on that. Thank you. Yeah, we're heading towards, looks like after Labor Day. We have an agreement with Nocella. We are planning on starting, the project's going to be High Street, Main Street. and all the way down Broadway, that corridor, we're going to mill and pave. And then we're going to pick it up again after Dock Square. Dock Square and Bearskin Neck will be a project at a later date near, I think it's Pier Avenue, up to the intersection of Beach Street and Main there. We're going to mill and overlay that as well. So that'll all be starting, like I said, in September. There also will be some sidewalk and handicap work in those corridors. And that probably might start before the paving project. So you might see some of that work start relatively soon.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sure the town will appreciate knowing something about when that all might begin, and they will look forward to the ultimate end product. So thank you.
Yeah, we're looking forward to tie. In the past, we've done Parker Street and Railroad. So we're going to tie in and also with the state paving. So we'll have that whole corridor from High Street all the way down and through. So
if we could make sure that we reach out to our new school superintendent to let him know, because there might be some delays with bus routes and things of that nature. Again, it's after Labor Day, which is good. So the traffic should be a little less.
Right. Unfortunately, yes, I will do that. It's always a battle here in town doing construction projects, whether it's tourists or the school. So,
yeah.
But we'll let everybody know, and I'm sure we'll do fine.
I'm sure we'll be fine. Thanks, Gary.
You're welcome.
All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Yes. Hey, I move that the board approve all non-held items on the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Next up on the agenda, we have the action list and the annual reappointments and exemption requests. And we'll obviously take the exemption request first before we move into the motion for Thatcher and Strathmouth Island Town Committee. We'll take up Monica's exemption first. Anyone want to start a discussion off or either make a motion if they'd like?
Yes, I'd like to move that we exempt Monica Lawton from the 3-committee limit.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And any discussion? I mean, I'll start off by saying, you know, I'm in favor of this exemption because I believe it 2 of her committees they're not really, she goes seeking for them. We asked her to be on those committees, and I think that is a reasonable exemption for this. I don't know if anyone else has any more input.
And I'm sorry.
Yep, second lady.
Yes, I guess my feeling is that if we are going to live with a limit of 3 committees, then it is up to those individuals who currently sit on more than 3 committees to make a decision themselves. I mean, I'm not saying that it isn't important for Monica to sit on certain committees. It is. But then again, on the other hand, it is also up to that individual to make a decision for themselves and to live within what we wanted to be guidelines for everyone in town, not just exceptions. So,
Selectwoman Donnelly.
Yeah, a couple things. One is this is a policy that we put into place after Monica was already on more than 3 committees. And I think the same holds true for Tom Meekus. I think going forward, it's something that we should apply, but not in this case. And also, I think at least 1, maybe 2 of Monica's committees are term delimited. So they're going to end because the projects will end. So it's not as if they're permanent committees. So I think for those reasons, both, we should exempt Monica.
Maybe we can find another committee for her.
Yeah.
Keep her busy.
Selectman Murphy.
No, I concur with the comments that everyone have made. I recognize that we want to get as many people involved in town committees as possible, and so if people are serving on more than 3, then that's difficult. But I also appreciate the willingness of these individuals to step up and serve the town. So.
I make one final point, and that is we have an annual point in time when we can make changes with regard to who serves on committees. So therefore, I don't think that just because people serve on committees at the current time allows them to continue, in a sense, going beyond or sitting on more than 3 committees, because we have our annual responsibility to update these guidelines, and that's what we have been about in recent weeks as we've considered this. So anyway, my response.
Any more discussion? I mean, I'm going to hold firm to my reasoning as, she was asked to be on 2 committees. So I think that it's more so. And again, I think, it takes note that we could bring up the policy again for review. It is a relatively new policy. So if we want to look into different, as these come up, we're going to hear different reasons and different exemptions that could possibly be made. So if there's no more discussion, I'll do a roll call vote.
Yeah, no, I just one more comment. I mean, it's tough decisions sometimes that we have to make on policies and so forth. So, it's why we get paid the big bucks.
All right. Thank you. I'll do a roll call vote if there's no more. Seeing none. Selectman Murphy.
Aye.
Selectman Lilia.
Nay.
Selectman Donnelly.
Aye.
And Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Monica is exempt. Next, we'll be moving on to Tom Mikas's exemption. Any discussion to start this one off?
I'll make a motion.
You can make a motion.
I move that Tom Mikas be exempt.
You cut out, Denise. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I move that Tom Mikas be exempted from this provision, from this policy.
Is there any discussion?
Well, I'll second it so we can discuss.
Sorry. Any discussion? Go ahead, Selectman Donnelly.
Yeah, so I think, as I said before, this is a go forward policy that we just adopted effective July 1st. And Mr. Mikas has been serving on these committees for quite some time. I think, he's been elected to the planning board, so that's not an appointed committee. He's appointed to the ad hoc water committee by the town moderator. Maybe that's something we need to look at, but that's neither here nor there at the moment. He's clearly got a great deal of support and has done quite a bit on the Green Communities Task Force. And I think it would be a shame for us to lose his experience and capabilities there. So I don't remember what his other committees are. What else is he on?
Just to touch on that, I will say the policy did include all town committees, so it does take into consideration
Yeah,
the elected and the
right.
town
So
moderators. Go ahead.
maybe we could ask Mr. Mikas when his next term comes up for one of the other committees.
I was
such as
just gonna
ad
ask
hoc-
Mitch that if he knows.
Yeah, ad hoc water or planning board or whatever his other committee is, to consider stepping away from that in order to comply with the policy. But I think just making him drop one now because of a policy change doesn't make any sense.
I know, but the policy, it was public when we voted it in, so it was known and it was sent to all chairs of the committees.
Understood. Just
Mitch,
my
you
opinion.
know when he's due to be reappointed or is up for?
I know that, so he was just reelected to planning board. He was reappointed on Friday by the moderator to ad hoc for another term. And I need to look up his rights of way term, which I will do while we're here.
I mean, I do gotta say it. I mean, July 1st was the deadline and he was reappointed that day. So he could have made the choice that day to step off that committee. I mean, I don't know, I feel that's a slight at us, knowing that he knew the policy and he still went forward with getting reappointed by the ad hoc committee.
Rights of way term expires June 30th, 2024.
I guess the other, if I may, Mr. Chair, the other comment I'll say is it's not exactly like, people are beating down the doors with his experience to volunteer for our committees. And so I just don't think it seems like a policy that's a little bit hollow if we go ahead with that for the sake of the policy rather than looking at the context.
I just have a tough time voting Monica in and saying no to Tom Mikas.
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't sit well with me. I just
Well, then I'll ask you, what were your points to vote Monica in? Do they apply to Tom? If so, then, vote the same way.
Yeah, I think we should make an exemption on both and then move forward.
So therefore, everybody in the future is going to be subject to the policy, is what you're saying? Is that your commitment?
Even though I
Yes.
knew that the policy was, as everyone pointed out today, July 1st. It takes
July
effect,
1st, yeah.
and he went ahead and got
I get
reappointed
it.
on July 1st.
Yeah, I hear you.
I mean, if there's no more discussion, I'll do a roll call vote. Any further discussion? All right, Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
To be consistent, nay.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes nay. So what does that do for the motion?
I believe that would make it a tie. The motion fails.
Motion fails. All right, so we're not reappointing to the Green Community Task Force. If Mr. Meekus would like to send an email to the board, if you'd like to resign from any other committee, we'll make sure it gets reappointed at the next meeting for the Green Community Task Force. If not, the policy will hold firm for now. And we'll be moving on to,
You want a motion from me
for what?
for the Thatcher's Island, Straightness Island Town Committee?
Yeah, I'm just gonna let the public know that there won't be any Arpa
Okay.
fiscal recovery fund requests, so there's none tonight, and we'll be moving on to the year-end transfer requests, and I'll take that motion.
But you want me to do it first? Because
Yeah, you can do the motion, then we'll have Mitch touch on it.
Okay, I move that the board make the following one-year reappointments to the Thatcher Island, Straitsmith Island Town Committees: Sid Wedmore, Gail Zeman, Lee Marr, Paul Senna, Raymond Moss, Richard Morris, Seth Carr.
I see what you meant, Murph, sorry.
That's okay. George Langer and Robert Kraus.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote. Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lilia,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye, motion carries. Now, as I said before, no ARPA funding, sorry about that, Selectman Murphy, and then
That's
we'll
okay,
under
no
the
worries.
year-end transfers, where I believe making that motion, it'll be Selectwoman Donnelly. If you'd like to make the motion on the year-end transfers.
If I could offer Selectman Donnelly, if you'd like, I can just read through them here, and if you want to so move. I have to give the explanations for them anyway.
Okay,
That
that'd
would
be
save you.
great.
Sure. I think you've got another longer motion, so I'll.
Yes, thank you.
So the year-end transfers, some of these have already gone to Finance Committee. Some will go to Finance Committee most likely next week. Again, these are FY22 transfers to balance things out as we've been doing. The first one is $1,737.51 from the FOG coordinator stipend to Board of Health purchase of services. This item, the food inspector now carries out all FOG, fats, oils, and grease inspections, grease traps, and establishments. He is a contractor versus an employee. Previously, it was done by DPW and an employee. So this is shifting that funding to pay for the services through an expense line instead of a salary stipend line. $35,000 from health insurance to the snow and ice expense to further satiate the snow and ice deficit. This is $35,000, and it, I believe, the balance prior to this transfer request was approximately $47,000. We're hoping to have DPW cover the remainder within their operating budget. We'll be closely monitoring. Again, it's always very, especially as you'll see the rest of these next ones, the utilities have been a huge challenge this year, which has removed a lot of leeway. So that's the $35,000 from health insurance to snow and ice. $2,500 from highway general wages, $700 from cemetery seasonal wages, $180 from DPW temporary clerical wages, $2,000 from DPW overtime, $2,200 from Parks and Beaches salary full-time, $666.64 from DPW assistant director auto allowance, and $410 from DPW director auto allowance, all to general fund electric streetlights, and $3,000 from DPW meeting support clerk wages, $2,000 from general fund department head salary, $1,000 from community house facility manager wages, $800 from general fund assistant department head salary, $7,000 from garage wages, and $5,000 from cemetery permanent full-time wages, all to general fund electric, public properties and buildings. So we had to move from these lines last month to cover the added fuel costs as well as some transfers. And now these bills are due. So we're trying to get the funding in place to backfill that and to cover the final costs associated with streetlights and our general electric bills for the facilities. So again, normally this is something DPW covers internally, but the costs have been through the roof, as everybody is well aware, on utilities and those expenses this year.
So I move that the Board of Selectmen approve and ask the transfers.
You broke up, Selectwoman Donnelly, if you want to repeat that.
Sorry. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve and ask the chairperson to sign the aforementioned year-end transfers.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion or questions for Mitch? Roll call vote. Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Loya,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye, motion carries. We'll be moving on to the TA report, and we'll start with the liaison assignments. Mitch, if you want to bring those up again.
Sure, just pulling them up right now.
I think Selectman Loya had some comments he wanted to make last meeting on these.
It was only that I was going to reflect on the long list with my name, but I said that I was, I have no objection to what has been assigned to me.
I'll bring them up again real quick, and we'll just. move
Sure. So
forward.
this is the list, and yeah, I guess I would say that this if this is last call on it. We'll then proceed with notifying the boards and committees unless they are any.
Selectwoman Donnelly?
Yeah, Herm, if you want to give something up, I'm willing to take on the Conservation Commission.
All right, no, I will stick with that one. How's that? Thank you, though.
Okay.
Alrighty, I think it's a go, so.
Fine with me.
All right, Mitch, yeah, you can send those out to the chairs and.
Okay. All right, great, thank you.
the next one,
And the
opioid
next
use.
item, yes, opioid use disorder settlement funding. So the board had approved the town signing on to this settlement funding through the Attorney General's office a number of months ago. We received a number of agreements to sign and a couple of hoops to jump through from the state to start to get this funding. And in your packets this evening, I've listed, I provided some materials relating to the usage of that funding. I've given the list. I believe it is the preliminary list from the Attorney General's office on allowable uses for this type of funding, as well as the amount of funding and how we will be getting it over the next decade plus for something like this. So I put it out there to you this evening, not to have you make any type of determination this evening, but more for you to start to think about something like this. The town has not had in any type of recent memory funding relating to this type of issue previously in this amount. It's a little bit awkward in the amounts that it comes every year, but certainly not something that can't be planned for. So I put out there to have you to start to think about ways that the town could utilize this funding. I think the list that the state provides is pretty comprehensive on some of the options available, and to see if you want any targeted input from police and Board of Health, the two primaries on this type of issue as well. So I put that out there if there's any questions or discussion on it, but just again, for you to start to think about this.
All right. Any comments from Mitch right now?
No.
All right. Before we move to public comment, I obviously overlooked this, put it on the agenda, but just for, general updates from.
I'm sorry, Selectman Bracken, I'm sorry, I just, if we could just circle back for 1 second.
Okay.
Do you want me to get any input on the usages from Board of Health and Police?
I would like that. I'm sure the rest of the board can answer.
I agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we'll get some feedback from them. Thank you. My apologies. Thank you.
All right. And so, yeah, just general update, just if anyone wants to comment about July 4th, how I think it went pretty well. The parade was good, for association's first time getting it together and kind of 2-year absence of it. And bonfire was the hottest bonfire I've ever been around. So
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I started out the day going down to the Dock Square where Bob Gillis read the Declaration of Independence. Matt Wignan usually does it, but he was unable to do it this year. And it was great. They must have, I'd say I saw Mitch there. I think there are a couple hundred people there easily. And it's really turned into a wonderful tradition here in Rockport. And thank you to the Rockport Rotary Club for continuing to do that. And the parade was terrific. Everyone was working together. And as Mitch said earlier today, that it was one of the quietest 4th of Julys on record, which is great. But it was great to see everyone in the parade and the floats and the bands. And I think after a 2-year absence, I think we really needed it. So congratulations to the whole town, the DPW, cleanup, police, fire, everyone who was involved. It was a well put on show.
I think the DPW is still cleaning up some confetti that a former selectman was firing off during the parade. Any other comments?
Sure, I'll chime in and say that from my perspective, it was run very well also with regard to all the different participating groups. Comments that came back to me from people who were there as a part of the forces was that there was a relaxed atmosphere down around the bandstand, around the bonfire, which had not existed in previous years. There seemed to have been a tension, whether thought to be necessary or not. It was a tension that wasn't particularly well received, I don't think, by the police and the fire. But this year, there was a relaxed approach. The chief was down there overseeing everything. I'm sure he had a big role to play in making sure that, and the chief of the fire department too, as well as chief of police, making sure that in fact things were going well. But the lack of tension was noticeable, so they are to be congratulated on that.
Thank you, Selectman Donnelly, any comments?
No, I second all those emotions.
And then one final thing, I know I discussed with Mitch, policies are going to wait, but I would like to bring up this 3-year policy back at the next meeting so we can discuss it more and try to fine tune it, because obviously there's hiccups in the road. I don't, as much as my votes were 2 different votes, I'm not comfortable with that. So I'd like to try to fine tune the policy and get that talked about again with.
I agree. That'd be good.
With that, we'll move to public comment, if any.
Okay, if anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. Monica, name and address for the record, please.
Excuse me, Monica Lawton, 11 Story Street. I'm glad to hear Ross make the comment he just made. First of all, I thank you for the exemption. However, I am somewhat disappointed with this policy. I think it, as Selectman Donnelly mentioned, it certainly makes sense to have a policy going forward for people who are seeking to join committees. That's often what's done with legislation. And in the current situation with people already on committees, I think it would make sense or be justifiable to not reappoint if people are not doing the job, if there is good cause. But the point of policies is to serve the best interests of the town. And I think the policy, the way it is crafted, can work to the disservice of the town. And certainly we want to have a policy that encourages participation, but particularly in a case where we are lacking in participation, I think a policy that removes people from doing good work is really not serving the best interests of the town. So I'm glad to hear that you will revisit it. I think that's a good course. Thank you.
Second what you just said, Monica.
All those in favor?
Okay. Toby Arsenian, Toby, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record.
Thank you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I was interested to hear Jason Shaw's presentation on the zoning articles. I believe he misrepresented what was presented at the town meeting as Article B, and the same would go for the intention to present it again. What amounted to a large change in the zoning was presented as clerical changes and updates. That's not accurate. If it's to be done fairly, it needs to be divided into separate Roman numeral sections, one for each section of the zoning, for any section that has any substantive changes, that is, changes that affect other than clerical uses. You'd need a separate article for the clerical changes that go throughout. Denise Donnelly said something to this effect, discussing it at the last planning board meeting, but it was not resolved. And there are various ways it could be addressed. One would be for your board to insist on a separate article and vote for each Roman numeral section. Another would be for the moderator to rule that such was proper. Articles can be divided on his say-so. And there's a third way of addressing it, and that is for any 10 people to request an article be divided. And I would certainly intend to do that if no one else stepped forward, but that should not be necessary. I guess I feel that we were told before that if something was rejected by a town meeting, you had to wait 2 years. Jason Shaw said that at a planning board meeting. When I brought that up at the last planning board meeting, I was told that I had never heard that I dreamed it. Perhaps Mitch Vieira could weigh in. If it is true and the state prohibits it, I guess you would need an exemption from the Attorney General to bring the article back within the 2 years after it was once rejected. So could we have some clarity on that, please?
So zoning articles, you're correct. There's typically a 2-year prohibition on having them come back unless it comes back as a final report of the planning board. That does not have a 2-year prohibition on it. So the planning board could issue a final report relating to zoning and bring the matter back before town meeting, subject to the selectmen's placement on the warrant.
May I add that there were substantive changes in the setbacks and in the parking regulations, quite apart from those related to the additional dwelling units and the train station. And there were also changes in the coastal floodplain zoning of an unfortunate and illogical nature. And if they're pretending that this is a cleanup of the zoning, it is no such thing unless we get the coastal floodplain zoning correct, and also the section on housing balance. Members of the board are interested in affordable housing, and that's the pathetic section of the zoning, wholly inadequate, that supposedly addresses it. It needs to be rewritten from scratch. The coastal floodplain zoning, ditto.
All right, thank you, Toby.
Okay, Ashley Shedd, you are unmuted. Well, actually, you have to accept the unmute and then name and address for the record, please.
Hi, this is Ashley Shedd at 71 Granite Street. Thank you for taking my comment. I just have a question on the status of the Conservation Commission. I'm not sure if I heard correctly that someone had taken over for that role, or managing the Conservation Commission and the status.
Nope, the town is following state guidelines when the commission goes out of service right now, and we're following all the rules, and we're keeping in touch with the state. What is it, DEP, Mitch, is it who you work with?
Yes, so there seems to be a lot of rumors floating out about this particular committee. So we're doing interviews for an agent, and we've had people come forward and go through the additional review process with town council for new membership. We're working with town council and with the DEP on how to appropriately move the commission forward once the board does add some additional members. There's some significant complexities into that relating on the personnel side of things. So we're trying to sort those out so we don't have a repeat.
Okay, and so in the interim, who is providing oversight for projects?
So in the interim, folks certainly are applying for their projects. Anything that is open, people are sending in their paperwork. DEP is handling any NOIs that hit the 21-day mark. We've had conversations with them about that. There's one significant project right now that is happening in town, and that oversight is under a superseding order of conditions with the DEP.
Okay, and in the event that conditions have been filed and registered with the Essex County of Deeds under the bylaw and are under the Rockport Conservation Commission wetlands bylaw, who in the town might be the appropriate contact person?
So until we get an agent where we do not have somebody who is closely handling that particular item, we're trying to address that as quickly as we can. Like I said, we're interviewing now for an agent, which we hope will be in place soon.
Understood. And one last thing, I guess I'm a little, my question would be if, where as a town are, utilizing Mass DEP in any superseding orders or, orders of conditions, given by them, are we not also upholding the Massachusetts legislation for conservation commissions where they can consist of not less than 3 and no more than 7 members?
Sure. So that's something that there's been some back and forth about, but council has determined that we do not have an adequate amount. It is not something that can fluidly move up and down on its own. So council's looked at that for us.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right,
If anybody else wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand on your video. Okay, I don't see any other takers, Mr. Chair.
All right, we'll move on to executive session. If we can entertain a motion.
Yeah, so if my internet breaks up in the middle of this, just know that I'm continuing to speak. I move that the board enter into executive session for the following: executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Back Beach Neighbors Committee versus Town of Rockport Land Court, CA number 21, MISC 000174. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Back Beach Neighbors Committee versus Town of Rockport, Essex Superior Court, docket number 2177, CV 00364. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Stephen Abel versus Town of Rockport et al., MCAD docket number 22BEM00744. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Glenn McLeod et al. Versus Town of Rockport et al., Essex Superior Court, docket number 2177, CV 00077. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body, the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session. Executive session pursuant to General to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Rousseau et al. Versus Town of Rockport, United States District Court, CA number 1:22 CV 10331 JGD. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, Local 1679, AFSCME, General and Supervisors Units. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares, votes may be taken, will not reconvene in public session.
I'll second that.
All right, we are entering into executive session because by not doing so, it will be detrimental to the town's litigating and negotiating positions. The board will not reconvene in open session. I'll be doing a roll call vote. Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Loya,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. We are entering into executive session.
At this time, the public portion of the Board of Selectmen's meeting has concluded. We ask that you please exit the meeting at this time.